Petrol price on the rise, electricity prices on the rise, interest rates on the rise, municipal rates also on the rise, but salaries not on the rise. Well, certainly not at the same pace. Many people now turning to credit cards and loans in order to stay afloat. The National Credit Regulator is urging people to keep their credit rating clean regardless of the cost of living. This may be easier said than done. Lebogang Selibi is a supervisor at the National Credit Regulator and joins us now here on Today. Good afternoon, Lebogang. It's tough times. I mean, to keep your credit rating at a good level, you need to be earning good enough money and having some money to spare. So tell us, what is a credit profile and why is it important for consumers to maintain a healthy credit report?
Thank you. Good afternoon to you, Dan, and to the viewers. So a credit report is basically a summary. It's a report with your personal details, and it's a summary of how you are handling your credit accounts, including some of your service agreements. So it will have all your credit agreements and how you are handling them on a monthly basis. It will also have your payment profile, how you pay or you do not pay. It also has a section where you they record adverse information, which is your negative information, any judgments if you may have, any debt restructuring information if you are under debt review, any sequestration orders, administration orders if you do have those as well. So it's basically a summary that would record all of those things.
So it's like a personal credit rating. So you get rated to say you are a good payer, you are servicing your debts very well.
Yes, it's similar to that because remember, when you're taking out credit, you usually or you should sign a credit agreement, a contract, and in that contract, usually it would say how much you would pay per month. And for how long. So each and every month they would then record, the credit provider would then send information to the credit bureaus with regards to whether you have paid or not. So that particular information gets updated on your credit report as well. So you also asked the importance of keeping a clean credit report. Well, basically the first thing is that you will get credit or qualify rather for credit in instances where you would need a credit, especially when you're purchasing your bigger items like getting a mortgage bond, buying a car or a business loan. You stand a good chance of getting credit. Another thing is that you will also get credit at a cheaper rate, meaning that the interest rate that they will charge you will be a bit cheaper than somebody who doesn't have a good credit report. And also, you stand a good chance of getting employment in sectors where you are required to have trust in dealing with cash and finances as well. So
let's say then you get you default on your payments, so you'll get a negative credit report. I'm just using that expression just generally. So how long will that stay? Will it stay there until you've paid what you owe?
Yes, so when you default, the information will be there for 1 year. However, as soon as you pay, within 7 days, that information can be removed. So if you don't pay it, it will be there for a year. But as soon as you pay that particular debt, within 7 days, they're supposed to update the information that you've paid.
Okay, but now, how can a consumer appeal or challenge if they are dissatisfied with the credit report? How can they dispute the information that is on that report about them?
Yes, so it's very important to actually get a free credit report once a year, a copy of your free credit report, because with that you will know if there's incorrect information. So if you see that there's incorrect information on your credit report, you must contact the credit bureau which issued you with the credit report and lodge what we call a dispute with that credit bureau. They will do the investigation, go back to the person that listed you, probably a credit provider or a service provider. Within 20 business days, they're supposed to now come back to you with information of whether they are removing it, or maybe if it's proven to be correct, the information will stay there. So the first point of contact is the credit bureau, which issued you with the credit report. If you are not winning with the credit bureau, you can escalate your matter to the credit ombud.
The credit ombuds. Okay, you said it takes how many days for a disputed info to be corrected?
20 business days. So
20.
It's a month.
Yeah, so it's a month. It takes a month, and if you lose that, then you have no more options really, unless you go to the ombud.
Yes, I mean, you usually with the bureaus, they will be able to assist you, especially if you've got proof of payment. And let's say you've paid, but the credit provider hasn't updated the information. When you're lodging a dispute, you also send them the proof of payment. So in many instances, they will update the information. But if it happens that the credit provider who has listed you insists that the information is supposed to be there, and you are on the contrary, then you can escalate your matter to the credit ombud. They will then also need a reference number that the credit bureau gave you. If you are still not winning with the credit ombud, it's then that you can come to the National Credit Regulator to further escalate your matter.
What is the view of the National Credit Regulator to something like reckless lending, where people are exposed to credit? Now, I mean, nowadays people are trying to get money from all kinds of sources. What's your view as a regulator?
Our view is that, I mean, the National Credit Act is very clear in terms of reckless lending. It's not allowed in terms of the Act. There are guidelines and affordability assessments in the National Credit Act for credit providers when they are granting credit, how they should then assess a consumer. Example, what to look for, a proof of income, your credit bureau report, etc. So if that is not done, then they can be charged for reckless lending. But it's also important for consumers when we are completing our forms for credit application, there's a section where they would usually ask you to list all your expenses. We shouldn't underestimate expenses just for the sake of qualifying for that credit report. I mean, for that credit, because in the long run, it will catch up with you. If they're asking you for the total of your groceries within your household, don't underestimate that, because then if you underestimate, in the long run, 3 to 6 months, you will now start to feel the pinch. And the National Credit Act, unfortunately, will not protect you in cases of you lying or underestimating your expenses. But the regulations are quite clear for credit providers on what to look for when they are assessing consumers for credit.
Okay. What about let's go back to the credit report. How can a consumer access a credit report? I mean, do you have to pay for it?
No, in terms of the National Credit Act, we are allowed at least one free credit report once a year, and it's accessible from credit bureaus. On the eNCA's website, there's a tab where it says registrants. Then the consumers can just click on credit bureaus. They can request for their free credit report once a year. So it's any registered credit bureau, they can be able to give. There are about 4 consumer bureaus who can give those credit reports to consumers. But you can get as many as you want. If you have already accessed your free one and you want another one next month, they will charge you a fee, but you are entitled to get as many as you want. And the Act just specifies that at least one free credit bureau once a year.
Are consumers applying for their credit reports? What is the trend? Are people interested in finding out where they stand, or are people not really applying for their credit, even the free ones?
Yes, especially with these free ones, or it's not that much. When we're looking at our stats, we've got what we call a credit bureau monitor, where it shows us how many credit active consumers do we have countrywide. So it's about 25 million or so. And with regards to that, there's just, I think it's about 400,000 or so who have requested for their credit reports in the last quarter. So you can just see when you compare the numbers that we are requesting for more consumers to make use of that right and request for their credit reports so that they can know what is included in the credit report. If there's incorrect information, then they will have an opportunity to rectify that particular information from their report. So we are requesting, the numbers are a bit low compared to the total figure of credit active consumers.
Okay. Finally, cybersecurity is an issue recently, and credit bureaus will keep very important personal information. And I mean, for how long that is kept, do you have a role as a regulator as well into how safely it should be kept?
Yes, the Act specifies that they should be able to keep the information as safe as possible. And with regards to how long, the National Credit Act also specifies what we call the retention period, how long the information is supposed to be kept. So, for example, your payment profile, how you pay your accounts on a monthly basis, the information will reflect on your credit report for 5 years. And things like your judgment, your court judgment, it's about 5 years or up until it's rescinded by the court, or you make a payment, and your adverse information, whether it's an enforcement action or maybe it's a subjective listing, like maybe when they call you and you don't answer your phone, they can list that as an adverse listing. It will be there for 1 year. But then, as I mentioned, as soon as you've paid, especially for adverse and your judgment, as soon as you've paid, the information can be removed.
So the information will be removed after that period of like a year to 5 years, and it will be fully removed, fully expunged from the report?
Yes, it will be removed. So in case of payment, within 7 days, it's fully removed. If you don't pay and it finishes the entire 5 years, after the 5 years, yes, it will be removed. But let's also differentiate between the listing and the payment. The debt will still stay because you haven't paid it, but then the listing will then be removed. But the credit provider will be the one who will then take further actions.
Okay, and security-wise, do you as a regulator have a say to how the credit bureaus must keep our information safe? I mean, there has been breaches recently.
Yes, we do have a say, and the Act specifies that the information should be safe. So we do have our compliance monitoring within the regulator, where they do compliance with the bureaus and check if everything is in line with the regulations and the National Credit Act.
Okay, thank you very much for your time this Friday afternoon. That's Lebogang Selibi, a supervisor at the National Credit Regulator.